Today, we have a crazy entitled parent story all about why a mom got angry at her daughter. We'll get into that in a bit, but first, am I an entitled parent? I have a 22-year-old son who moved out of my house almost a year ago. I love him so much, and he's my world. His father and I split when he was younger, and it was rough for a while we figured out how to co-parent. It took about 3 years for us to get into a space where we could be considered friends, and our relationship was better than it ever was after we got through all the mutual hurt we had caused each other. I always tried not to speak ill of his father or to bring up any wrong I thought he had done to me. I tried very hard to keep my son separate from any issues I had with his father. I don't know what his dad did at his house, but I would hope he did the same. My son went to a private school paid for by his dad, and I tried to keep up with the latest and greatest for him. Since his dad married and had several stepchildren he also took responsibility for. My son was my only, so I got him all the things his dad couldn't get for several children. I also tried to make sure my son had quality time with his father's parents, even if it meant they got to take him on my time. I tried as hard as I could to be kind and loving and understanding and all that. I'm only human, and this was my first time being a parent. My son moved out last year after I helped him get his dream car, which I think he's figured out that I might not have been right at the dealership when I told him he needed to take into consideration the cost of ownership as well as the monthly payments. He's doing well for himself. Stable job, continuing education to promote, great girlfriend. The thing is, he doesn't call, he barely texts, and never tells me he loves me. He didn't call for Thanksgiving or respond to my message. Usually, the only thing I get from him is a text when he sends the cash for his part of the car insurance. I made it clear when he got the car that I could not afford the insurance for his car with how young he is, and the type of car he got. Most months, it's the agreed upon amount, but sometimes it's way less. No big deal, I'll split the difference. Here's where I start to wonder if I'm an entitled parent. Recently, I've been feeling taken for granted or just outright ignored. I miss my kid. I've asked if there is anything I could do to improve our relationship and got no reply. I've told him about extended time off from work and asked if he wanted to hang out or something with no response or acknowledgement. Would I be wronged entitled if I told him that if he didn't want a relationship with me, that he should find a way to pay for his own insurance? I'm saving him about $200 a month by having him on mine, and I'm spending a crap ton extra by having him on my insurance when he doesn't have to be. I feel like if I can't get an I love you occasionally or a response to what to have dinner once in a while, then he shouldn't expect me to take on the added insurance for his car. Also, can anyone tell me if this is normal for male children to do this, and will he ever come back home? Or is it always going to be transactional? He has no issues going on vacations or camping trips I plan out of state. Or am I the jerk for thinking if he wants to act all grown up and not need me, then he can be all the way grown up and take care of his responsibilities by himself? Comfortable Tell 323 responded, "Sounds like he's the entitled one. You've spoiled him, so now he's learned to expect it, not appreciate it. The dream car was stupid. You got what you can afford, and save for the dream car, you didn't cry to mom and get it handed to you. If he's old enough to live on his own, he should be responsible for all his own bills. No insurance, no cell phone, figure it out or go without. As for the communication, every relationship is different. My best friend calls his mom every morning on the way to work. I talk to mine once a month for a couple hours at a time. I can tell you neither of us miss a call on a holiday or birthday. I was out of the country for Thanksgiving, so she got that call on Monday this year, but I still made sure to call and let her know. Sounds to me like your son is grown but hasn't grown up yet. Maturity is still lacking. I don't think you're entitled, I think he's entitled and you're hurt." Also, hi, my name is Brendan, and if you guys enjoy these entitled parents videos, it'd be awesome if you left a like or left a review if you're listening to our podcast. That said, our next story is Why My Father Got a Punching Bag. My old man was a naturally large and strong person who liked to think he was cool, but his temper was something else. He'd go into what I called gorilla mode. He'd puff up his chest and start stomping, and he usually resolved his anger by hitting something. My mother kept trying to tell him to hit pillows, but the walls were his primary target. Didn't matter where he was in the house. If he got angry enough, he'd hit something. If it was something he could break with his fist, he'd break it. but more than once he made the mistake of hitting something his fist couldn't break. He'd seethe, then go listen to his record player and drink, and he punched a lot of holes in the walls. My parents had spare cans of paint and putty in the garage because of all the holes in the walls my father made. Everything changed in the late 80s when my father's team lost the Super Bowl. He went into a rage and punched the wall again, but that time he hit a stud and broke his hand. He got stuck on light duty at work for 2 months before it was healed, and he hated it. Before, he said he was always confident he knew where the studs were, but he was running out of places he hadn't punched already. After his hand was better, my father came home with an old punching bag that he'd gotten from who knows where, and he put it up on a chain in the garage. From that day, almost every time he was angry enough, he'd go attack that punching bag like he was Rocky in the slaughterhouse. After a few years of that, he eventually tore that punching bag up to the point he had to replace it. The thing was practically made of duct tape by that point anyway, and he went out and got another one to replace it. That one looked old too. Still don't know where he got them from. My mother was also rather thankful he'd gotten the punching bags because it meant almost no more holes in the walls. Still happened a couple times a year, but usually he hit the punching bag. When I was 18 and bought my second car, I put said car in my name so my father couldn't steal it, like he did my first one. For roughly a week, my father repeatedly demanded I hand over the title to my car, and when I refused, he'd try to rough me up. But I wasn't little anymore and was getting bolder against him every day, so he'd just threaten me and then go into the garage. He was loud when attacking that punching bag, lots of F-bombs and ranting no one could understand. After that week, my father kicked me out for refusing to hand over the car to him. I never entered my parents' house again, so I don't know if my father wore out that second punching bag or not. But after I got situated, living in a trailer at my uncle's house, I started going to the gym, and I used their punching bag quite often. And a friend taught me basic martial arts with punching and kicking. I was by no means fighter material, but as I beefed up, my old man was less and less inclined to pick a fight with me. And I could now see how it mentally broke him to see me as the stronger man. I wanted to slug him in the face so many times, but I never got the chance because I was always waiting for him to hit me first and make it self-defense. Subject Show 465 commented, "Seems like he has some underlying issues if he stole your car and has to hit things to calm down." Wagoneer Chump responded, "He was an extreme narcissist and a pretender. It all caught up with him bit by bit. He basically had no friends by the time the 90s were over." Our next story is, "Me and my boyfriend ticked off a father the other day." This is going to be more of a humorous and not outrageous post, just about an interaction me and my boyfriend had a couple days ago with an EP. I wanted to share this because I couldn't stop thinking about how dumb it was. My boyfriend's never been to a science museum before, so we decided to go to COSI. It's mainly aimed towards children, but still has fun and interesting stuff to do. Lots of parents just letting their kids run wild and bother you when you're trying to check out an exhibit. Whatever. Well, they had this weird motion simulator ride that can fit up to 8 people, and we got tickets just for fun. Sat in line and waited patiently before just the 2 of us got into the ride. Last minute, a family with a dad comes up, at least a couple kids. Couldn't see them very well from the ride, and they were in the line. He asked the operator if they could just ride with us. Kinda weird, but whatever, it's not a big deal to ask. I've agreed to letting strangers ride with me at theme parks before, so they didn't have to wait. But this was a motion simulator that closed entirely and has an emergency stop button on the ceiling. We wanted to ride alone, and I immediately worried the kids would be overreactionary, break the rules of the ride, or hit the emergency stop button and ruin it for all of us. Also, I didn't want to be cramped in this confined space with strangers. So I told the employee we wanted to ride alone, and God bless this employee honestly, a true saint. Pretty much took the responsibility and didn't tell the man we said no, but rather said she was just going to run the ride for us two for now. I think the dad assumed we said no regardless. I couldn't see the dad well, but he immediately responded with attitude and went, "Ugh, seriously?" or something like that. I couldn't hear whatever else he said. It just annoyed me because the ride is only like 3 to 6 minutes and they were next in line. What's the big deal? You aren't entitled to riding with strangers just because you don't want to wait. I didn't hear the kids fussing or anything, he just didn't want to wait. I just don't get it really. If you've never heard of COSI, it's a very large museum and there's no point rushing through it at all. He ended up actually waiting anyways. I didn't even acknowledge his existence by looking at him, but I could still feel him staring at us as we got out. I don't know how to describe that feeling, but when you don't look in someone's direction but you can feel them rage staring through you? Anyways, my boyfriend ended up thanking me for speaking up and saying no. We had a fun time in general and moved on, but the interaction and entitlement was so strange to me I couldn't forget about it. I had to share it here. It just amazes me how entitled parents can be, especially nowadays. The museum was full of parents just letting their kids do whatever, and not bothering to correct them or tell them to leave you alone when you're trying to interact with an exhibit. They also had a robot there that you can interact with. We waited for a woman to finish up, and when I wanted to try it, a dad had his 5 kids come over and all start interacting with it even though it was my turn. Ended up not getting to interact with it. It's just incredibly annoying that some people seem to think that just because they have kids, they're entitled to go first or do whatever they want. Newsflash, other people are allowed to do things and have fun too. Edit. I can't believe I'm having to add this to my post. The comments on this are getting ridiculous and I want to clear things up. First of all, no, I'm not whining or claiming these parents are terrible parents. I can understand things from their perspective. I was a bit harsh and I want to acknowledge that. Being a parent is hard and I should be more understanding. This post is based around very brief interactions I had with people at a museum aimed towards children. Please keep that in mind. There's no jerk. They're brief interactions people experience every single day. The dad had every right to ask because apparently I didn't make this clear enough in my post. I thought he was entitled when he got annoyed at the employee after we said no. Asking doesn't hurt at all. I don't have an issue with the fact that he asked. I absolutely would have said yes if the circumstances were slightly different. This post is not that deep. Digging in on who I am and who these parents are as people's parents is beyond ridiculous. I shared this because it was funny, not because I was deeply annoyed or something. No, I'm not a victim in these interactions. They're normal interactions. This happens every single day. I didn't mean to paint myself as some sort of victim. Once again, repeating, I only posted this because I thought it was funny, not because I felt hurt or victimized. I want to offer an apology to any parents I may have offended with this post or come off as judgmental too. I'm sorry. I definitely should have been more considerate of these parents' circumstances and how it can be really difficult to control your kids sometimes. There's no such thing as giving 100% every single day. I should have understood better that they're exhausted, probably drove a long way, and may not have even noticed their kids acting up or skipping lines. I should have acknowledged this in my post initially as well. To further my point, I didn't mean to come off as complaining about children. I love kids, and kids will be kids regardless. They hold absolutely no blame here in my heart. This museum is aimed towards children. I absolutely expected things like this to happen. Kids have every right to take up space and run around and be annoying. My issue was with parents allowing their kids to disturb other people trying to interact with exhibits. Hope this clears that up better. Finally, I didn't mean to paint anyone as a jerk in this post, or like bad people. We all do things like this, whether on purpose or not. These interactions are not at all enough to understand who these people are. I don't know any of these parents personally. I didn't mean to call the dad entitled overall. I felt he acted entitled at the end of our interaction. We all act entitled at times, so please quit debating this in the comments. It's pointless. Nobody is a jerk here. It's just brief interactions that could have stemmed from misunderstandings from the parents' perspectives. I shared this because I thought it was funny. Nothing else. Akazumi commented, "Some people unfortunately seem to forget that museums are not daycare centers." Lame As Nerd responded, "Yeah, it's ridiculous. The whole time I was there, I only saw a parent correct their child one time. I was interacting with a certain exhibit where only one person can do it at a time, and a young kid came running up, and to my genuine surprise, the parent actually stopped them and pulled them away from me when they tried to hijack. Obviously, I don't blame the children. This one especially looked way too young to even understand what they were doing. It's the parent's responsibility. Same with libraries. Thankfully, my local library has cracked down in the last few years and will ban misbehaving children." Our next story is, "Parents hate my boyfriend and make me feel terrible. My boyfriend, 24-year-old male, and I, 24-year-old female, have been dating for almost a year now. I'm extremely happy with him and he treats me so well. It's been an absolute dream being with him. He's the perfect man and I can't see my life without him. Our relationship has been amazing. A few weeks into us talking, I had a feeling we would be official, so I told my parents about him and also told them he has a son, 3-year-old male. They were initially stumped and told me they aren't the biggest fans, but they were overall kind about it and said it's my life, so I can choose. I listened to them and kept it in my mind, but I decided to continue our relationship. After they realized I wasn't ending things with him, they became much more cold and rude to me. They told me they don't understand why I told them if they were going to say they don't approve, and I just decided to continue the relationship. They said they'll never give us their blessing to marry, they'll never have us at events together, that they're mourning the death of their relationship with their daughter, etc. They've also told me that I'm straining their marriage. They've sacrificed so much for me to throw it in their face and make rude comments calling me stepmommy in a condescending tone. Initially, I did try my best to have them meet and open a conversation for us to talk about it. I would be open to tell them where I'm going with him, if I'm staying at his place, or where I got my flowers from. He's gotten me flowers every month since we've been dating. But eventually, they told me they don't want to hear about it or see him, so I stopped telling them where I'm going completely. I spend much less time at home because of the tension, silent treatment, or rude behavior. It feels like a lose-lose telling them everything, trying to find a solution, or just leaving them alone. I live with them and I'm saving up to move out and be fully financially independent. They've already thrown finances in my face, mentioning how they pay my insurance and I live under their roof, which I agree, so the best thing would be to just move out and get rid of one argument they have at least. There's constant tension in the house with them, and whenever we seem okay, it's because I just go straight to work and home. Every other month we seem to argue about all this, but I've become tired. The arguments are full of harsh remarks and condescending comments about how I make stupid decisions, how I'm ruining the family and they'll never accept us and never attempt to. They've also said when our family doesn't like someone, they'll outcast them, and that's just how it is. So it's my decision to date him or be part of the family. They then go on to list all the family members they avoid because they don't like them or their partner. My mom also mentions how her personal trauma from having divorced parents will not allow her to accept my relationship or be involved in my life. My parents have an us versus them mentality with the rest of my family and credit their trauma for it. When I've spoken up about how that may not be the healthiest thing and how it makes no sense to love me unconditionally, then do the same to me, I'm just told that's the way our family works. I've tried many times to have a conversation and have been outspoken about how they don't talk to me to actually discuss things, rather they just yell at me. I've said I don't feel comfortable at home, considered or seen as a person, all for it to lead to more yelling and scolding and bullying. At this point, I know I haven't treated them the best recently because I've built so much resentment for them as well, and I'd rather not. But at the same time, I can't try to be happy in the house knowing their kindness and love feels conditional. Any advice would be appreciated. I love my family dearly, but I want to stand my ground for someone I care about and for my own boundaries. I know they want what they think is best for me, but I can't justify this treatment. LawyerCat63 responded, "Ready or not, it's time to move out. I too was 24, in love, and my parents hated him. They tried to be cordial at first, but anything I did with him was perceived as a slight to them. My boyfriend, now husband, was a med student, valedictorian in our high school, and a good friend of mine in high school. My mom even encouraged me to date him at first. Then they realized that he was half Jewish, an atheist, and would not kiss their butts. They also didn't like that I was spending the night at his place. I was going to law school and lived an hour and a half away from him, so driving home never made sense, because people would know we were having hooked up. Oh my God, I was 24 to 25 years old. One day, my mother got mad at me over something stupid and threw all my clothes out of my closet and onto the lawn. I called my boyfriend to come get me and moved in with him that day." Marby2000 replied, "Thank you for sharing your experience. It helps gaining more insight from personal situations. I'm trying to hold off on moving out until the holidays are over, and I'm 100% confident with my finances, but there are some days I really want to just pack my things and go. My boyfriend always tells me I'm welcome with him and he'd love it, and he's bought me tons of pajamas and clothes already so I can be comfortable at his place. My cousins and friends have also let me know they have a couch for me too. For now, it seems like I can manage, but it's good to know I have safe places. I'm also very happy for you for your husband. Our next story is, no, Dad, I will not let you take my house camping. I mentioned in a prior post that my narcissist father in the 90s was angry that I was living out of a camper trailer, not because I was using it for a home, but because I had a camper trailer. He'd wanted one for years and just never got around to it. On top of his other faults, you can add extreme procrastinator to the list. After I moved into my uncle's backyard with the trailer, my parents eventually found me. They forced their way in and stole my car keys and then my car. That situation had to be resolved with police. They eventually started demanding I be their free driver again for when they went out drinking, and that didn't go over well either. Eventually, my mother showed up to gripe at me about something else. By then, she was pretending to be over wanting my car, but it was pretty obvious she was not over it. On this particular day, she was mad at me because my father was ranting about my trailer. Apparently, he was ticked that I could just take it anywhere I wanted, and my mother told me she wanted me to get an apartment or something, so my father would shut up about it. I told her no, I was getting way too good of a deal living out of the trailer. My uncle was hardly charging me anything, and I just had to do his yard work on top of the low amount of rent utilities I was paying. There's no way I'd give that up for an apartment. When my parents got their hands on another Vista Cruiser, it could tow things like my Caprice could. The Cavalier my father stole from me couldn't tow anything, and the small orange 70s car my mother had used for a while wasn't made for towing either. So when they got another wagon, they got one with a tow hitch, and as soon as they had it, my father wanted to start towing things, and then he decided all of a sudden he wanted to take my trailer camping, and he treated it like a FYI at first. My father, in his usual attitude, just showed up and bluntly told me he was going to use my trailer to go camping. I refused, and then he tried to order me as his son to let him take my trailer camping during the summer. I told him no again. It was literally my home, and I know him. He'd try to park my trailer at his house and then never give it back. My father tried to give me his Gorilla Man act, and I met it head on, the two rednecks chest bumping. But I told him to his face that he was not getting my trailer, ever, and to go out and buy his own. The trailer also had a title in my name, and I wouldn't hesitate to call police if he took it. My old man, as usual, called me ungrateful, tried gaslighting, and finally left. My uncle watched practically the whole thing from a window with popcorn. He loved any time he saw my father miserable, because my father was the golden child between them, and my uncle was treated horribly when he was growing up. So he was more entertained than anything else when he saw my old man having a tantrum over not getting his way. My father went out and rented a camper trailer for a few days, and then suddenly he didn't like camping anymore. He only wanted to do it because I had a trailer, and it was pretty obvious he wanted to claim it for himself. He honestly believed that anything that was mine was also his, and it took him several years to get it through his thick head that wasn't how things worked. And just about everything he ever borrowed from me after I moved out, I never got those things back, so I didn't trust him with anything. I personally didn't feel the need to do any camping because I was already living out of a trailer, but I gave it a try when I became a parent myself, and it honestly wasn't that fun for us. My ex-wife especially hated it, but I wouldn't say she was what ruined the experience. I did take that trailer to a couple of family reunions though. That saved on motels. I was far from the only one in the family to do that though, and my parents demanded I let them sleep in my spare bunk for free during our mid-90s family reunion. I said heck no, and my parents were humiliated right out of that reunion anyway, because they doubled down over how I didn't hand over my second car to them, and my mother got slapped by a cousin for being a horrible parent. Realistic Noise 2 commented, I know this is completely unrelated, but because it involves an entitled narcissistic parent demanding a trailer, have you ever heard of the infamous Do It For Dan story that basically had a family that was super toxic demand that they give the OP his house to them because the golden child brother had too many mouths to feed and the parents didn't want to keep housing them anymore? I would say that this would almost sound like it, but you actually went face to face against your late father and actually still kept the trailer, and they didn't try to pursue it afterwards. Our next story is, Mom got mad at me for asking her not to talk about me out loud. Was cooking and Mom came into the kitchen and started cooking as well. A commercial about kids was playing on her phone, and then she said out loud, "My kids never played with other kids. What's wrong with them?" Didn't just end there, just went on basically repeating it out loud until she said, "Let me turn this commercial off." Now, this just made me upset, ruined my mood that was okay today, so I told her, "Can you not say that?" She then instantly got upset and said, "I'm not talking to you. I'm talking to myself. I talk to commercials out loud all the time. How are you telling me what to say in my house? I really don't get it. I'm right there. Why are you saying something so rude about me?" In my siblings, but I know she mostly means me. Out loud. Why couldn't you just keep something like that to yourself? She was trying to deflect, justify her actions. "It's my house, I can say what I want," bullcrap. She literally does this kind of thing every single day. Talk about us, me mostly, out loud. It's so mentally draining. I regret even saying anything, and I should have just stayed quiet because now she's mad and throwing stuff, slamming things, etc. Heard her say, "They're really telling me what to say in my house." She makes me feel bad for saying anything about it, but dang, it hurt to have your mom just saying, "What's wrong with you?" Especially since I read documents a few months ago where she said horrible lies about me, such as, "I like to lie to hurt other people," to some psychiatrist. This was when I was barely 12. Like, I'm not telling you what you can and cannot say, I'm saying do not talk about me like that. It shouldn't matter if it's your house or not. It's basic human decency, but I guess she can do whatever she wants to me and say whatever since it's her house. I didn't choose to live with you. I can't be crazy. Her throwing stuff and being mad makes me feel like I'm in the wrong. Whatever it is, I shouldn't have said anything. I should have just shut my mouth because I would rather be talked about every day than deal with this. Maleficent Inn's Curse posted, "Just completely ignore her and only interact with her when it's absolutely justifiably necessary. Think of it as like ghosting her while still being in the house. You didn't state your age, but I'm guessing you're between 16 and hopefully 18 soon. And when you turn 18, if you're able to move out, and going on contract with her for a good long while, several years at least." IceLogic8 replied, "I just turned 20, sadly less than a month ago. I'm disabled and unable to get a license, and I'm currently looking for work to move out and to afford a car and driving lessons. I failed my driver's test 3 times. My mom refuses to help me practice to get my license, and it's been a year since I last drove, so I have to get a job to pay someone to help me finish up my hours. 14, so I can take my test again. Without a car, I can't get to most jobs, and I struggle to leave the house for anything because there are no businesses near the home due to crime, and they all closed down in the past 5 years. Just recently, my pharmacy closed, so now I'm struggling to pick up my medication too. Makes me really depressed because I feel hopeless. I'm working with a job agency to find work because that's really all I can do. Since everything moved from the area due to crime, I have to travel to a different city for work, school, leisure, etc., and now to pick up my medication too. Not even my twin brother, who isn't disabled, can find work. So I basically have no choice because she basically has full control of my life right now. Wish I could do all that, but I know I'll have to put up with it for now. Sucks. With that being said, that's all the time we have for today. If you enjoyed today's video, drop a like and comment below, and if you want to check out our other videos, click the video on the right. With that being said, I'll see you all next time.